Before we begin, in this video I will discuss medieval medical texts and mention herbs and remedies which are now obsolete. Many of them are toxic and dangerous and should not be consumed under any circumstances. In A Song of Ice and Fire, moon tea is an herbal concoction given to women to prevent or quietly end an unwanted pregnancy. It is usually prepared by maesters and wood witches, and it appears again and again in the background of the main plot. Its first mention comes from A Storm of Swords, when Tormund tells Jon, "You are a bastard born yourself, and if Ygritte does not want a child, she will go to some woods witch and drink a cup of moon tea. You do not come into it once the seed is planted." It's only a brief mention, but it reveals a lot. For starters, it becomes clear that knowledge of moon tea is relatively widespread. It's a backwoods remedy for a common problem about which only the free folk seem to talk openly. And yet it appears repeatedly, first in the books and then in several House of the Dragon episodes. Alicent took moon tea, fearing the fruits of her affair with Socris and co. Rhaenyra too was given the tea by Grand Maester Maelus at the request of her father. Lysa Arryn used it after her affair with Petyr Baelish, and through her we learn that the ingredients of the potion include tansy, mint, wormwood, honey, and pennyroyal. It is generally considered safe, although according to Maester Orwyle, it can cause some gut discomfort. But how real is any of this? Could a mixture of herbs like that actually work as an emergency contraceptive? Were there historical versions of moon tea? To explore that question, we will once again dive into a world of medieval medical texts from the bowels of the Bodleian Library, pausing to consider the unique role this simple world-building element plays in A Song of Ice and Fire compared with other fantasy novels. Unsurprisingly, there are several mentions of herbs with contraceptive and abortifacient properties in early medical texts. Before we look at them, though, it might be useful to distinguish between those two uses, as Soranus did in his 2nd century manuscript, Gynecology. A contraceptive differs from an abortive, for the first does not let conception take place, while the latter destroys what has been conceived. Let us, therefore, call the one abortive and the other contraceptive. Based on what we know from the books, it's not possible to say for certain whether moon tea has one function or both, despite Cersei's protestations that moon tea only has one use. It certainly appears to be abortive, but taken soon enough it could also act as an emergency contraception, preventing a pregnancy from even starting. Earlier notions about contraceptive could be unusual. The Trotula, for instance, a group of medical texts from the 12th century, does not mention any herbs known by then to have abortifacient or contraceptive properties, but it does suggest that a woman who does not wish to conceive should carry, against her nude flesh, the womb of a goat which has never had offspring. Carrying the testicles of a weasel in her bosom would also work, as would placing grains of caper in the afterbirth of a difficult delivery. There are, however, other texts which are more explicit about the properties of certain herbs, including some of the ones mentioned as ingredients of moon tea. Tansy, for instance, is mentioned in the Physica, the 12th century medical text by the nun Hildegard von Bingen. In it, Hildegard prescribes tansy as an expectorant for those who have catarrh and coughs because of it, but she also mentioned it is effective for a woman who is in pain from an obstructed flow. In other words, a late period. The recipe is rather elaborate and involves not only the ingestion of tansy alongside feverfew and mullein, as well as a sauna bath and a second concoction made of bearberries and dittany, among other ingredients. You will note that there's no mention of abortion in that excerpt of the Physica. Instead, Hildegard's text mentions a retention of the monthly flow. This isn't an euphemism. It's a reflection of a genuine belief system where pregnancy was one possible cause of missed periods, but not necessarily the primary concern. The clinical system that dominated Europe during the Middle Ages, and which already appeared in the writings of both Hippocrates and Galen, was humoral medicine. The theory held that the human body contained 4 vital fluids, or humors, and health meant maintaining the perfect balance between them. According to humoral medicine, any retention of these bodily fluids needed correction. Blood was one of them, and because women's bodies were thought to be naturally wetter than men's, a delayed or absent period was a cause for concern. Many medieval texts prescribed treatments for these obstructions, and many of these were also abortifacents. Tansy, for instance, worked because it has a poisonous compound called thujon, which causes uterine contractions. It can also be lethal. Wormwood shares this dangerous mechanism. Its oil also contains thujon and therefore has the same effect. It was also used to wean babies by rubbing it on the nipples to give milk a bitter taste, a practice referenced in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet in the first act. Pennyroyal has a long documented history as an abortifacient. It is mentioned in De Materia Medica by Dioscorides, written between 50 and 70 AD, and again in the Natural History of Pliny the Elder, where he states that pennyroyal in honey and vinegar expels the dead fetus. Now we know pennyroyal is toxic to the liver, and there's at least one recorded instance in which its ingestion led to death. Most of the prescribed recipes in those early texts were dangerous, and early scholars knew that. Soranus's Gynecology specifically cautions against the danger of these. These things not only prevent conception, but also destroy any already existing. In our opinion, moreover, the evil from these things is too great, since they damage and upset the stomach, and besides cause congestion of the head and induce sympathetic reactions. George R. R. Martin must have come across this in his research. In an interview in 2002, he specifically said he added touches of fantasy to moon tea because he didn't want anybody trying them in real life. What about mint and honey? Their inclusion shows attention to detail. Medieval recipes often included pleasant-tasting ingredients to mask the bitterness of medicinal herbs and poisons. Although Hildegard's physical cautions against the consumption of honeycomb wax, which according to her, can cause melancholy. I don't think the fact that contraceptives and abortifacents have been used since the Middle Ages, and in fact since before them, is at all surprising. A Song of Ice and Fire isn't even the first fantasy book to mention such things. In The Mists of Avalon, for instance, when Morgane is pregnant for the first time, she tells her aunt that she does not wish to have the child and that she knows what to do. Morgause has also made use of the same knowledge. In A Song of Ice and Fire, however, moon tea is more than just a background detail. Instead, it is a critical contributor to the world building. For instance, the way moon tea is mentioned by various characters illuminates some of the differences between the people of the Seven Kingdoms and the Free Folk. Knowledge of moon tea among the Free Folk appears to be commonplace, given by how casually Tormund speaks to Jon about it. South of the Wall, on the other hand, there's a veil of secrecy and shame over such conversations. When Maester Orwyle prepares the tea for Alicent, they speak of it in the third person, as if the beverage was meant for someone else. Similarly, when Rhaenyra is told to drink the tea, the Maester's demeanor is shrouded in secrecy. He explains its effects only with subtle, cryptic words. In part, this may be because the Faith of the Seven condemns the use of moon tea. Unsurprisingly, since the faith is a standing for the Catholic Church in Game of Thrones. During Marjorie's imprisonment and trial, the fact that she had consumed the tea was brought up multiple times, and the High Sparrow elicited Maester Pycelle testimony on that account. Clearly, the Citadel honors no such vows as those of medical confidentiality. Moon tea is also used as a tool for characterization. Its use is not just a question of medicine, it's a question of who has power. When Rhaenyra is offered a beverage, she is little more than a child, and her will appears inconsequential to everyone else involved. Asha Greyjoy, on the other hand, Yara in the show, is characterized by the way she openly claims her agency and by her determination to escape the limitations of her gender. She seeks a wood witch herself, who can teach her how to brew the tea to keep her belly flat and her choices open. In both instances, the way these women approach moon tea tells us a lot about their character at that point in the story. Moon tea also reinforces the state of subjugation under which women live in A Song of Ice and Fire. Most women in the story face difficulties and limitations because of their gender. Some of them have been made to drink moon tea without their knowledge of what the tea actually did. Such appeared to be the case of Diana in House of the Dragon, a servant girl who had been abused by Aegon. And it certainly was the case of Lysa, after she confided in her father that she was expecting Littlefinger's child. "I would have given you a son too," Lysa said, "but they murdered him with moon tea, with tansy and mint and wormwood, a spoon of honey and a drop of pennyroyal. It wasn't me. I never knew. I only drank what father gave me." Moon tea is not just a detail in the lore. It's a lens into the lived realities of women in Westeros, into the political consequences of the body, and into the silences that surround reproductive knowledge.
Raise the tankard high, my friend, where tales and laughter never end. The fire roars, the ale does flow in this fine hall where spirits glow. Oh, sing a tune and clap your hand, we're the merriest lots in all the land. Through mead and wine our voices blend in the tavern's heart where nights transcend.